Please water the tomato plants. See, because we're here at night, we can water the plants. And maybe you perhaps don't realize the whole new hobby that's going on among executives. Do you know what's going on now? Well, you see, there are thousands and thousands of untapped acres of New York windowsill space in executive offices that are now under agricultural tillage. In short, the newest in thing for an executive is, say, to grow a crop of wheat on his windowsill. Yeah, and they till it, and they come to work with their little overalls, trowels and stuff, and it's a whole big thing now. And so there's this one executive, he keeps dropping me these notes here to water his tomato plants. He's growing his crop for the salads and that. He's having aphid trouble, by the way, recently, and we had a little scene here where I had to come in and spray the aphids at night on the way through. And then he had problems with a thing called a tomato worm. Have you seen the tomato worms yet? Well, I don't know where they come from, but on the 24th floor here, we had an infestation of tomato worms recently. And well, they'll follow wherever it is. And so right now I'm just watering. He said that tomorrow, he says, we're going to put some more of that fertilizer. And he says, I'm leaving the fertilizer in your office. Would you please do it? By the way, there was another note. It says, incidentally, there's an addenda to the thing. It says, would you please ask your listeners for contribution to Herb Saltzman. Mr. Saltzman is the manager of the station here. And he has a wonderful corn crop that's growing up there in his reception room. He's got it in the reception. He's got lights on it and all that. And of course, corn would be very apropos but nevertheless, he's growing the corn there, and he's having a problem getting cow manure. You just don't go into Lickett's down here downtown asking for cow manure, although you're liable to get some if you try to order something fast. But nevertheless, he says that he's having trouble getting cow manure. And it says, please ask for donations from your listeners who may be out in the country there who would like to donate some cow manure to Mr. Saltzman. So if any of you have any cow manure, just mail it to Herb Saltzman here, WOR, New York, and by George, we're all going to have a corn roast this fall when the crop comes in. He's starting to talk out of the corner of his mouth too and spit a lot. Well, you know how farmers are. And he's getting mad at rabbits. Rabbits tend to eat the corn crop before it comes in. And so if you see any rabbits coming out of the men's room, please deal with them summarily. They're after Herb Saltzman's corn. So there it is, friends. I've completed my job. I was all set to do a show here, but I have to do all this work here first. Any cow manure, send it to Herb Saltzman, WOR 1440 Broadway, and he'll know what to do with it. And conversely, if you got any cow manure, now you know what to do with it. I have to salute this great American. What did I do with it here? Yeah, great American here. Great American. Where's my great American department here? I had it. I had it here. Oh, yeah, here it is. Here it is. Great American here. Great American department. Great American department. Returns. Prescott, Arkansas. If you think things are bad in Queens, listen to this. Prescott, Arkansas, right? Old Mike's funeral was something of a disappointment to the townspeople here. I've had a feeling for a long time that fiction, as today represented by television drama, movies, and so on, rarely touches at all the grotesqueries of reality. There's an old cliche to that effect, that the fiction cannot compare with reality. That's true. That's really true. And here's an example. You'll never see anything like this on television. Prescott, Arkansas. Old Mike's, we tend to think that out there in the great out beyond, out there in those clean states like Ohio and that, everybody's sort of clean-limbed and they all belong to the Rotary Club, right? And they all vote for George Wallace, right? Which is ridiculous because it ain't the way the actual facts are. But we believe this, see? That's part of our mythology. It's like Frodo. And in fact, did I tell you about my friend here who had this, he had a terrible experience? He did. I'll tell you the absolute truth. I'll raise my hand and tell you what happened. I hope the guy isn't listening. He says, the worst thing ever happened in my life happened last week. I said, what happened, Harry? And he says, oh, God, it's fantastic, unbelievable. I said, well, what happened, Harry? He said, oh, God, I can't even talk about it. I says, well, here, calm down. If you can't talk about it, you shouldn't have brought it up. Now you got me sitting on the edge of my chair. He says, oh, God, fantastic. I said, what? He said, oh, far out, far out. I said, come on, Harry, cut out with the far out stuff. Tell me what happened. He said, well, he lives up in this very elegant community up in Connecticut. Now, certain elegant communities up in Connecticut can afford more expensive and elegant habits than they can, say, in real life. And now I'm talking about all kinds of habits, see? And so I say this to preface the story. So Harry said, oh, God, wow. And I said, what happened? He says, well, he said, I got this daughter, right? I says, yes, Harry, you do, I guess. He said, yeah, oh, wow. He said, she come home from this date the other night, and this guy brings her up to the door, and he just throws her on the door and says, she's high on acid, and she's having a bad trip, man. And he runs off into the weeds. I says, what? He says, yeah, he just thrown her in the house and says, she's high on acid, man, and she's having a bad trip. And he run off in the weeds. I says, this is your daughter, right? He says, oh, yeah, man. Well, after all, it's okay, you know, she's 15. So I says, oh, well, yeah, well, then what happened? And see, I'm reflecting only contemporary morality, which we all know is a Victorian world, right? So he says, oh, wow. And she comes screaming into the house. She goes, ah! And I said, what happened then? She says, well, you know what she did? I says, no. She thought I was Frodo. I says, she thought you were what, Frodo? She said, yeah, Frodo, man. Well, and he said, I sat down in the barca lounge there, see? And she comes up and she says, oh, Frodo, I knew you would come one day. I knew I would see you one day. And I said, well, what'd you say then? I said, well, I had to play the part. I said, what, you mean you played Frodo for 2 hours? He said, yeah, then she fell asleep. I said, well, how do you play Frodo for 2 hours sitting in a barca lounge here? He said, well, that's what made it tough, man. It was really tough. And she kept saying, why don't you call some of the other hobbits, huh? I want to meet the other hobbits. I says, well, you mean your house was full of hobbits? He said, yeah, they're hobbits. She thought everybody was hobbits. And so, you know, Ethel, my wife, I says, no, I thought your wife was Marcia. He said, no, well, that was the other one. This is my new wife, Ethel. So Ethel comes in for the kitchen, and at that point, my daughter says, oh, another one of the hobbits. Hi, how are you? And I said, well, what'd you do then? She says, well, me and Ethel played Hobbit then for the next 2 hours. Well, I said, okay, yeah, it's very interesting, Harry. He said, oh, yeah, man, far out. Wow. Hey, how about a Harvey Wallbanger here? And at that point, the waiter broke the whole thing up, and we never got back on the subject. So I thought you ought to know, friends, that good and plentiful and goody things are happening out there, out in the old, beautiful, cultured, historic Prescott, Arkansas. Beautiful town, by the way, it really is. Old Mike's funeral was something of a disappointment to the townspeople here. Did you see this report from the hinterlands? This is the kind of stuff you don't hear on Walter Cronkite's news. No, right. It wasn't that there was anything wrong with the funeral itself. Again, I must preface this by telling you this. You're never going to see anything like this in the TV drama. Listen carefully. It wasn't that there was anything wrong with the funeral itself, but Mike had died 63 years ago, and people had gotten used to having his body around. Bum, ba-dum, bum. Bum, 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 bum. Well, they had waited so long for somebody to identify him that he was I guess you'd say he just kind of part of the firm, said Wayne Simpson, an employee of the Cornish funeral home where Mike's body had been 63 years in a back room. Well, he's just standing back there in a cabinet, Johnson said. I don't know why we did that. You know, I come to think of it now, I just don't know why we did that. You know, we just kept him back there 63 years, you know. Things go on, time passes, and you just sort of let things slide. You know how it is with your desk, probably got the same problem. Anyway, we had Mike stand back there in our closet 63 years, and once in a while we'd just open the doors and look at him, see if he's still there. And, you know, he just sort of got to be part of the town. He'd been here so long, you know, people come from all over, you know, all over the state just to see old Mike stand back there in the closet. And, you know, I'll tell you, a lot of people's going to be awful disappointed now that we laid him away finally, because he's one of the biggest tourist attractions we had here in Prescott. You just come in, people come back, see, you know, they come in through the front there, you know, past the Howard Johnson, and they just say, can we see Mike? Well, we charge him $1 a piece, you know, after all. You can't just keep opening that door. After all, that 3-in-1 oil on the hinges and all that. And so we finally just started to charge $1 a piece, and we'd just take them back there. And a lot of times we used to scare people that way, What we used to do, we used to take them back there, and these old ladies had come from places like Ohio, want to see Mike back there in the closet. And we just bring them back there, and all of a sudden, we just open the door real quick and say, boo, like that. And there's old Mike standing, so what made him so good is he wore a straw hat. Mike was wearing a straw hat when they found him. 63 years he's been back there, And he had this funny smile on his face. Nobody did know who he was, And so we finally figured 63 years long enough, and we finally laid him away. That's the end of the quote. I think that's kind of a nice speech for a man. It says nobody knew who he was. In fact, they didn't know his name was Mike. They just gave him that name. And one day, 63 years ago, they found him laying in front of the pool room. He was just a stranger going through town. And you know what can happen on a Saturday night in Prescott, Arkansas. He just was going through town. He never made it through. And that was the end of the ball game for him. And so they took him down to the Cornish funeral home. And since nobody knew him and nobody's going to pay, they just stuck him in the closet in the back waiting for his relatives to show up. And they never showed. So old Mike just stood back there in the closet for 63 years wearing that straw hat that he wore on that last Saturday night, coming out of the Idle Hour pool room, never quite made it, and they don't know what happened to him. And so when they finally laid him away, it was kind of a pretty ceremony. A few people came. They come and they sing a few hymns over Mike. They didn't know what denomination he was. He could have been almost anything. So they sang Christian Onward Soldiers, and coming through bringing in the sheaves was kind of nice. And they finally laid him away. But then after they laid him away, there was kind of a regret around town because, they knew they'd laid away the biggest tourist attraction Prescott, Arkansas is ever going to have. And they kind of miss Mike now. And at this point now, there's talk that maybe they ought to bring him back. And, after all, Prescott ain't going to be the same, especially this summer, what with the depression and all that coming on. The only action in town is the Dairy Queen now. And they give up giving chocolate jimmies. And so there's just not much happening. And just a little bit of music there would kind of add to the final statement, of course. So we'd like to salute Mike tonight. Finest tourist attraction that Prescott, Arkansas ever had. Finally left that closet. And can't you just see this as a TV drama? Look it up there, please. Tonight, a 90-minute suspense special. Starring Ben Gazzara as the corpse. Geraldine Page as the widow Cornish. Roddy McDowell as her aging son. And David Niven as the stranger. The scene opens in the widow Cornish's kitchen, and we hear her say to her son, Roddy McDowell, "Roddy, we're just going to have to do something about Ben. He's been in the closet now with the brooms. He's been in the closet now. I'm sorry, Barney. You're not watching me, Barney. You're not watching me. Just sneak it in there again. Just keep your eye on old Dad here, and we'll have the show on the road. Yes, Roddy, just bring it in. Just come on. Don't be dead bashful about it. That's it." Heaven's sakes. I mean, it's getting so that you can't do a television on any television show at all without having your music sneak out on you. So, Roddy, sit up straight. There, we've got the music straight again. Now, Roddy, please, wake up now. I hate to see you nod over your granola like that. Roddy. Yeah, that's better. Roddy, we're just going to have to do something about Ben. You know that the ladies are coming for bridge this afternoon, and several of them have been complaining recently. Ben's been in the broom closet now for 23 years, and you're just going to have to do something about it. And I personally feel, as far as I'm concerned, he can stay there till hell freezes over. After all, what he said to me on that last day, I'm not going to forget soon. And you were right in what you did with that curtain iron. But, Roddy, we're just going to have to do something about it. Gee, Ma, I know, Every time I open the broom closet, Ben just looks out at me like that, and he's still, you know, and I just can't get used to that funny look he's got in the eye. But I just can't go on much longer like this, Roddy. You're just going to have to do something about Ben, no matter what he does with his eyes. I have a suggestion, though. Well, gee whiz, Ma. Why today, Ma? After all, you know, that tall stranger that I met at the dance at the gym last week is coming to visit today. And I just don't have time to lay Ben away this afternoon. But I just can't. Why don't you ask the stranger to help you? And the two of you can have a lay Ben away party this afternoon out in the back, out by the tomato bed. You know, Ma, that ain't a bad idea, actually. When he shows up, I'll ask you. And now a word from Johnson Wax as we get ready for the second act of tonight's suspense drama starring Ben Gazzara as the Body. Thank you. That was pretty good, wasn't it? Would you like to see the rest of the drama? Come on, take it out. Odds it up. Wow. Did you like that drama? I mean, I thought it was kind of nice. But see, that's the kind of stuff that television just doesn't do. And unfortunately, it's based on real life. You understand? That's real life we're talking about. And you notice that Ben was only in the closet for 23 years, but Mike was in the closet for 63 years. Because we had to update it a little bit, you know, because when you keep opening that closet and Ben's clothing gets more and more out of date, eventually, you know, the actor's going to complain bitterly, you know. He doesn't want to be passé already, you know, in his career. But did you like that, Mark? Oh, that's the kind of stuff you like. Gruesome, evil, ugly, things that go bump in the night, all that stuff. Hang in, baby. That's Frodo again. You know, that's magic. And you do. Yeah, you know, did you like my little Frodo drama? But that was a true story. It really was. He sat there for 2 hours and played Frodo. I said, you know, you weren't even a leading character. I mean, that's like, you know. But he said, oh, man. You know, so what are you going to do, you know? But I have felt for some time that our mythology, which is, you know, television and radio and all the rest of it, that is truly our mythology today. And you know what's getting to be the new mythology is news. Barney's thinking about that. Why? Well, let's put it this way. It is believed among more people and more people and more people that because they're hearing more news, more things are happening. Now, you know, it's a fact that if you were alive 100 years ago, let's say at the time, let's say 120 years ago, you know, and it's just before the Civil War, right? If you were alive at that time, about every 6 or 7 months, as you're out there in the back 40, behind Maud the mule, and you're struggling through the weeds, and you're trying to get your potato crop in this year, see, and you're talking to old Maud. Come on, Maud, let's go. Come on, Maud, come on. But Granny, I don't know what you're doing, Maud. Let's go, Maud. And you know, and the mule's going, ew, and you're struggling away there, and all of a sudden, Claude, the hired man, shows up. See, he's coming out. He's bringing you a jug of lemonade. See, you're in your 18th hour of work this day. That's the way they work in those days. And Claude shows up. See, and Claude says, "Hey, Caleb, I brought the lemonade." He said, "Well, damn it, old Claude, you see, I'm having trouble with Ma. You grab that flame there. She's hung up again in the weeds. Now come on, pull." And of course, there's a little hassle going there, and you like this little drama going on. You can just see it in your mind. See, at that point, Claude hands Caleb the lemonade, hands him lemonade, and he says, "Do you hear what happened, Caleb?" And Caleb says, "No, Claude, what happened?" He said, "Well, I was down to the hardware store 2 weeks ago. Just got back. You know, it's a long walk. It's 34 miles. I just got back with them 10-penny nails that you ordered, and I just come in. You hear what happened?" And he said, "No, what happened?" He said, "Well, I heard that there's a rumor down there around the hardware store. They got a thing called the railroad." It's a thing that goes over the ground, and it makes a lot of noise and blows smoke in the air, and it moves along, like, you know. And you turn around at that point, you say, well, what would you say they call it? They call it the railroad. It's a railroad. It's a thing that goes over the ground, and it pulls stuff. Well, our Granny, what ought to think of next? When are they going to have it here? I mean, are they going to come all the way out here to Missouri? I don't think so for some time. They say they got this thing around a place called Delaware. There's a state over off to the east called Delaware, and they got one of them things. They're fooling around with it, but you know how them eastern fellas are. They're always fooling around that kind of stuff. Okay, well now, listen, when you get back in the house, will you tell Emily I'll be in just in time to help her with the milking? You tell her I'll be in. Now let's go, Maud, move along there. Okay. That was called news, and that you'd get one or two hot flashes like that every maybe year or three, possibly. And some guys were out there deep in the weeds for maybe up to the 1874, didn't know that there was a Civil War, didn't know it had come and gone, and by the time it was come and gone, in fact, there's a case on record, and it happened right in that same county in Missouri, where Caleb was there deep in the weeds again, and Claude shows up, and Claude says, it's over, you know, Caleb. He said, what's over? Damn it, Maud, will you stop there? Get your foot off my boot there. What's over? He said, well, I had a thing called a Civil War. I don't know what it was about, but I just come back again from the hardware store. You remember I left last October to get to the store, and I come back, and they tell me it's over. Well, what the hell is over? If you don't mind me using the Lord's name in vain, what the hell is over? Well, they say the Civil War is over. What Civil War? Well, they had that war, you know, them guys back there again out in the east and down there around some place called Alabama. They were shooting at each other there for a while, and I don't know what the hell it was about, but they had this thing called the war. And now the president is dead. The president is dead? You mean that we don't have no president anymore? Well, they got a president called Grant now. You see, the other president's been dead for some time. I heard the rumor he's been dead for some time. They had another one in between, and now we got this man Grant is in there. You mean old Sam Grant used to run that mill down around Joplin? For God's sakes, how did he get to be president? No, this Grant, no, that's not Sam Grant. Somebody named Ulysses Grant. It sounds like a Greek name to me. I can't figure out how he got to be president with a name like that, but they tell me he was a general in that war they had. That war, that Civil War, and they made him president because of that. You know, they won the war. Who won? Well, the guys that had this guy Grant with him there, this man Grant was involved, and he somehow won the war. I don't know what side he was on. I didn't have time to talk because I had to turn right around and come back. You know, it's over 17 weeks coming back here, and I didn't have no time because we needed it for the spring plowing. What did we need? We needed that pail you asked me to get last fall, and I just brung it back. Pail? I didn't want no pail. Well, that's what you said. I went all the way into town to get that pail, and damn it all, I've been walking now for 4 months, and I got this pail here. It cost me 74 cents. You mean to tell me you're out there in that town hanging around spending my money on pails? We don't need no pail here. How'd you get that idea? Well, last fall you turned to me and you said a pail. Oh, you're out of your mind, Claude. I turned to you and I said, it's hailing, it's going to hail. Oh, well, I'm sorry. Well, all right, we can use it sometime around the house anyway, and I'll be back at the house if you need me. I'm cleaning out the barn. Oh, okay. Oh, by the way, I might tell you, on the way back, you better take a look at the barn. You know, it burned down since you took a walk, and you better start cleaning up the wood. We got to build another one, and we hope to have it done by, what year is this? This is 75. Well, we hope to have it done by 78, and I want you to start work on it this afternoon. Tell Emily I'll be back in time for the milking. Will you please do that? No, the first one. Oh, it's all right, Barney. All right, thank you. Sudden burst. Oh, it's all right. Don't. Just play it cool. Oh, man. Did you like that little drama? All right. You just don't hear that kind of stuff on television either. But now that's the way news was in those days. Now I'm not exaggerating. You say to yourself, oh, come on. No, it's a fact. In fact, there was a time when all of a sudden it happened out there in one county, by the way, in northern Mississippi, when it actually occurred. There was a guy deep in the weeds again, and his partner, who was at that time named Cletus, that's another name that was very big down there, come up and he says, hey, Sam, you know what they got now? And Sam says, what do they got now? Damn it all, I'm having enough trouble down here in the woods without them coming up with something new. Now what do they got now? So, well, I got this thing called a telegraph. A what? This is a telegraph. He's another one of them damn new religions, huh? They're going to come around here thumping the Bible again? I know what that kind is like. It's like them, well, I had that time. What you say, it's a what? It's a telegraph? What does it do? Well, it's got a wire, and they say something over it. You know, I don't know how it works, actually, but they say something over it. Well, what is there to say? Well, I don't know, but they put the wire up anyway. Who cares what they're going to say? They got the wire up. They'll find something to say. And that, by the way, was the beginning of the news industry. They'll find something to say. My God, if we have to scare the country. And so the news myth is that more things are happening today than ever before. Let's put it this way. You're hearing about more things today than ever before. Now, 100 years ago, you never would have heard of Mike being laid away in his final resting place. You heard it here tonight. Right. Now, 100 years ago, you wouldn't have heard of my friend who played Frodo for 2 hours. Right. Now, you heard of it, right? So you have an idea that more of that stuff is happening, right? Forget it. Stuff was always happening. Can you imagine this guy, this guy down in the shadow of the pyramids? And, he's working down there. He's working with a sacred cat, he's trying to get it to eat its milk or something, After all, those sacred cats were not easy to deal with. And all of a sudden, another Egyptian comes up to him and says, hast thou heard the latest? So we don't know how the Egyptians actually talk, so one must put it into Shakespearean terms, right? Hast thou heard the latest? Am a Hottentot. He says, eh? He says, yes, there is someone named Mark Antony on his way. He desires to marry the queen. He says, oh, you mean Cleopatra? He says, yes. Who'd want her? He says, well, you know how these Romans are. He says, Romans? What are Romans? And, of course, that began that whole scene. So we could, well, no, really, Can you imagine? It must have happened in the time of the cavemen. The first newsman developed. 3 guys are scrunching around down there in the weeds, in the back of the cave there among all the old moldering bones. And one guy comes out of the rain, Og comes out of the rain, saying, the rain is coming down. And at that time, his caveman friend, with the beetling frog, and at that point, Og goes, and Charlie, the second one, goes, which translated means you don't say. Actually, the first newsman came back and said, they're on their way, which means the other guys with the clubs from the other hill are coming over, and he was the first newsman. Of course, like the first newsman, he got put down by the other 3. Like, what the hell do you know? And so it all started very early in our time, the newsman. And so the great wheel grinds onward. My God, it's another weekend, isn't it? May your corn popper pop well this weekend, friends. Think of poor Mike tonight, laying in a cold grave after 63 years in the closet. Must get awful lonely out there.